Hello everyone. Today's video has been frequently requested, so I decided to finally do it. It's going to be about the introduction of solid foods to infants and really nutrition during that entire first year of life. We're going to try to hit on, if I remember, iron, vitamin D drops, fluoride, B12, calories, things like that. Now this is, as always, a completely general overview. Ask your pediatrician about your specific infant's needs, as there are so many variables with each individual child. I can only tell you sort of generalities. Also, if you could do me a favor, if you find any of this information helpful, it would be awesome if you could subscribe. It's completely free, I hope you understand, and this is just a way. My goal is always just to reassure you as parents and provide some education that may help you in raising your children. So let's get started. When your brand new baby comes, really all they need to start with is breast milk. Now remember, breast is definitely preferred, but a fed baby, a well-growing, well-nourished baby is wonderful. There is nothing evil, sinful, wrong, dangerous, or bad about infant formula. It's the best these days that it's ever been. But obviously, if you're able and willing to breastfeed, we would love that. We will encourage you. We will offer support and answer your questions around that. In fact, there's already a video about breastfeeding, and I could refer you to that, which would be a great idea. Now, if your infant is exclusively breastfed, well, really, and if they're formula fed as well. Right now, the current recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics is to give all infants vitamin D drops. These are available over the counter. There are many different brand names and different products. Some of them are combined with probiotic drops, which can be helpful if you want to use probiotic drops anyway. It just gives you, one less thing to remember. That's totally fine. Also remember that your infant gets vitamin D from sunlight exposure, so around 30 minutes a day is a great idea. That doesn't mean at 12 noon when they may get sunburned, but if it's in the morning or the afternoons, it's generally safe. If you're taking a walk and they're getting some sunshine, that's excellent for making vitamin D in their body. Now, most experts, and I've gotten all these recommendations pretty much straight from the American Academy of Pediatrics Committee on Nutrition, but most experts recommend beginning solid foods between 4 to 6 months. Every baby's different. The things that you will look for are if your baby is able to sit with support. They do not have to be able to sit independently yet to begin introducing solids, but just with support. So like maybe in one of those bumbo pillows, if they can hold their upper trunk and head with good neck control, then they may be ready. I've also personally noticed that most all the time they're starting to become interested in your food. So if they watch their little eyes, watch your spoon go to your mouth, that always makes me sad that they want some solid foods. But also it shows that they're interested and they're paying attention. So those are some good signs. Now the Committee on Nutrition recommends for the very first foods, starting with infant cereal. A lot of parents start with rice cereal, or if you're concerned about too much constipation from that, you can start with oatmeal cereal. The reason is for infants who are exclusively breastfed, they need more iron than the breast milk can supply starting around 4 months. So between 4 to 6 months is the time we recommend introducing. Some of that's up to the parents, of course, but we start with very soft, mushy, pureed things. So it could be rice cereal, oatmeal cereal, and that would be the stage 1 without added ingredients. It could be homemade foods. You are absolutely welcome to puree your own foods. Now, we don't recommend buying already canned foods because they could have a lot of sodium added. If you make homemade foods, you don't want to add extra sugar or salt to those. Or you can buy the pre-made baby foods. Most of the stage 1s are pureed fruits and vegetables. Now, the Committee on Nutrition says the first food should be cereal because they're supplemented with iron, or actually single ingredient pureed meats. Now, some of those single ingredient pureed meats look a little bit like cat food to me, and they look a little bit hard to take. So when you move up to the stage 2 foods, a lot of them are mixed with a fruit or a vegetable just to make them more palatable and give them a better flavor and better texture for the baby. So as you're introducing the very, very first ones, I want you to remember a few things. We recommend giving 3 to 5 days before each new thing is introduced, just so you could say and tell if there was anything the baby was reacting to or having any kind of an allergic response from that individual food. But once they've had that food and done well those 3 to 5 days, in the future you can certainly keep using that. You only add in one new thing at a time, however. Also remember, the bulk of their caloric intake or energy intake is from milk still. So we do not want to decrease the total amount of ounces per day of milk that they're taking. So in the beginning, we recommend introducing the first food after a milk feeding. Because if the infant is hungry and waiting for a milk feeding in which they get a lot of calories fast and fill up, they're going to get very frustrated, aggravated, and angry with you trying to give them a solid food on a spoon. Remember also, usually between about 4 to 5 months, babies still have an automatic sort of a tongue reflex. They can't help but reject what goes in there at first. They will overcome that, outgrow it, and get used to it, particularly if they really love that solid food. Now, when you're very beginning, don't worry if you don't get a large volume into the baby of solid foods. We're just practicing. Like I said, the calories are from the milk. This is for fun. This is for practice. This is to make sure that they're not allergic to anything. And then by about 6 months, you can move up to feed attempts about 3 times a day. The amount of solid food per feeding is going to depend on your child. When you get the pre-made foods, certainly the stage 2 jars, which you can start at 6 months, are bigger and they're not as pureed. They're a little bit thicker, and as the baby grows, they'll be able to tolerate a little bit more of a thicker texture, which is perfectly appropriate. So we talked about vitamin D in the infants. Iron is important starting at 4 months in exclusively breastfed infants. Not as big of a concern in formula fed because that's already supplemented with iron. And then beginning around 9 months, anywhere from 8 to 10 months, infants can learn, they begin to develop their fine motor skill of pincer grasp. So you can start actually introducing a few soft finger foods for them to try, such as slices of banana, slices of avocado, cooked green beans, pinches off of baked chicken, pinches off of biscuit, noodles, and all these sorts of things. Super fun. And this way you can tell if they're still hungry, they keep putting it in their mouth, and when they're full, they'll sort of clear their high chair tray. It's also so healthy for the infant to be included in the family time around the family table. It's a very social thing, and that's a part of their healthy development as well. So we've got stage 1 foods, purchased or homemade, starting at 4 to 6 months. Stage 2 foods, which include some combinations, more meats, larger volume, a little bit thicker, starting at 6 months. And stage 3 feeds, which if you buy them already made, have little bits of food in there, little bits of noodle, little bits of rice or soft cooked veggies or fruits all mixed in. Or you can start doing really lots of different kind of table foods at 9 months. Now, by 12 months, we will see the total amount of milk ounces per day decrease. So by 12 months, we say most babies need about 16 to 20 ounces per day. We do not want your baby getting regular straight whole milk until after their birthday. And even after their birthday, we do not suggest rice milk or almond milk. It is very low in fat, and fat is essential for normal brain development. So from 12 to 24 months, they should really be on whole milk, 16 to 20 ounces a day, and all table foods. Now, a couple of things to remember. If the mom is breastfeeding exclusively and is a strict vegan, no eggs, then the baby's also going to need some form of B12 in their diet to make up for that potential deficit. Another thing to think about is fluoride. Now, recommendations about fluoride, they've changed so many times over and over. But what we typically currently say now is most pediatric dentists recommend once the tooth is erupted, then we start to use a tiniest smear of Kids Fluoride toothpaste on the surface once to twice a day. Now we know the baby can't spit, so we don't do a large amount till they can spit on purpose, which is usually around 3, developmentally speaking. And we believe that the main mechanism of action of the fluoride is topically to mineralize that enamel to make it stronger and more impervious to cavities and decay. So we do recommend that. Other things to think about, as you're beginning to introduce solid foods, many people are nervous about choking hazards. So let me tell you certain things that we truly want to avoid. Never offer a whole grape. As they're older and doing finger feeds, you could certainly chop up the grape and that would probably be okay. Be careful with raisins as well. Obviously, no nuts, particularly peanuts. Obviously, they shouldn't play with balloons. They shouldn't have popcorn. They shouldn't have round candies. They shouldn't have raw vegetables that could break off in a chunk and get lodged in their airway. So when we're talking about introducing veggies, we're talking about soft cooked vegetables, not raw vegetables, because they're really dangerous. And I've seen some graphic and tragic pictures of a chunk of carrot, a marble, popcorn in the airway that really cause sometimes even fatalities. So that's terrifying, so be very careful with that. But almost everything else, once they're 9 months, if you want to try foods that have whole milk in them, like macaroni and cheese or like mashed potatoes, that's totally fine unless they have a history of an allergy to cow's milk protein. Now, let me talk about allergy a little bit. You guys, or your mothers, the grandmothers may remember, years ago, well, forever just about, we had held the line that the longer you wait to introduce a certain food, the less likely the baby will be to be allergic to it. Funny story, that whole entire paradigm completely shifted 180. Now we say, If you introduce foods earlier, they're less likely to become allergic to them, which makes sense to me because if you think about it, breastfed infants have the lowest rates of food allergies. We think because they've been exposed through the maternal diet and developed, desensitized to those individual foods. So if you want to try scrambled eggs at 9 months, you can. Used to, we would have told you to wait. If you want to try some sliced soft strawberries, you can. If you want to try a tiny smear of peanut butter. Now be careful, a thick peanut butter sandwich could be a choking hazard, but just a little smear of peanut butter on your finger on a small cracker, that should be fine to try. Now, if you're nervous and paranoid as I am, I think it's perfectly okay to keep some children's liquid Benadryl available just in case you ever introduce anything and your baby gets hives. Let me tell you this too, as you're introducing foods, I get this question a lot. Babies and toddlers and older children sometimes will often get just red skin where a certain food, especially liquid, has touched them. My kids did it to butter. If they ate a big buttery piece of toast and got it all over their mouth, it would look red just where the butter touched. Same with ranch dressing, ketchup, mustard. Lots of those liquidy condiments can just make your skin turn red. That is not a true food allergy. For a true all-over reaction, we would be talking about hives from their head to their toe after they swallowed something. It's systemic or all over, not just where they touched. If it's just where they touched, just wash it off with a cold, wet washcloth. If it persists, you can put a little hydrocortisone cream on there and be careful in the future. In really bad cases, very messy eaters that love ranch dressing, you could even do a thin layer of Vaseline or Aquaphor around their mouth just to protect their skin because they're certainly going to get some more on there that next feeding. Okie dokie, so we've got full table foods by 12 months down to 16 to 20 ounces, switching to whole milk. We start trying to use the sippy cup at 9 months because if they're still in a bottle at a year, we try to wean them from the bottle totally at 1 year of age. The other thing that I would want to recommend is you not use honey till 12 months of age. That's not a part of those allergy recommendations we were just talking about. That's only because there's a concern for something called botulinum toxin or botulism, and so we don't want babies to get honey until they're 1 year old. I think we've covered most all the things we set out to cover today, particularly choking. Oh, one more thing I was going to mention. We don't really recommend fruit juices at all. They're high in sugar, they're bad for the teeth, they cause cavities. However, if you're a pediatrician, and we will do this sometimes, recommends full strength, 100% juice, no added sweeteners, prune, plum, or pear juice, 2 to 4 ounces a day. We'll do that occasionally for severe cases of constipation. And you will occasionally run into constipation even as you switch from infant formula to whole milk at 12 months. Even though there's no iron in the whole milk, a lot of times the milk itself just can cause some constipation. Okay, one more thing I wanted to mention is a lot of people believe that if they begin introducing solids before the age of 4 months, it will make their infant sleep through the night. This is not true. It's been studied and never been shown to be the case and can cause issues. The only time we really use any kind of solid foods other than milk before 4 months is if we have to add rice cereal or oatmeal cereal to the milk to thicken it for bad cases of gastroesophageal reflux. And we do that sometimes. That can cause some constipation, so we're careful with it. But even if your baby had to be on thickened feeds for reflux, you still can use that as you begin to introduce solids, because the point of introducing solids is to teach them how to take it from the spoon. That's really the point. It's not so much early on the total number of calories. So just wanted to clear that up.